Everybody, I just made a quick video here. I just wanted to show inside real quick my ESP LTD M255 guitar. It has a Floyd Rose licensed tremolo system. Hopefully one day I'll replace it with the Floyd Rose, but at the moment I just use that. I prefer the Floyd Rose, the actual brand. But this will suffice for now until I get the actual Floyd Rose. But the reason I'm making this video is that when I got this guitar, it was used, and it's a great guitar, by the way. But it was having a tuning instability, and this one came blocked already. It was already blocked. The tremolo, because I don't know if you guys know, anybody that doesn't know out there, Floyd Roses, they're a floating tremolo system. They actually float. It's like a seesaw effect. The springs tension and the spring tension. You see these springs here, and then the strings on the other side. It makes like a, to keep it even, so it'll be floating. So you can go forward and backwards with these things. But the problem is when the string breaks on them, for example, is that they will go out of tune because no longer the tension on one side's off. Like a person on a seesaw, if something heavier goes on one side, the other side, it completely goes off balance, and then you have problems. So, for example, if you're gigging out there, or you're jamming with some friends, and just having some fun, and the string breaks, all of a sudden, if that thing's floating, you cannot, basically play anymore, because you have to literally stop because everything goes out of tune. So I personally like to block my tremolos. I've been doing it for a while. My guitars, I've had many guitars with either Floyd Rose or Floyd Rose licensed tremolo. And my personal way of doing it, because when I got it, it was this block here. And please, anybody out there that's the guitar tech or anything that's seen this video, please don't use a pick guard to block a tremolo. This is probably the most horrible way to doing it, because the force bends this, because this is plastic. And I see them, they try to glue the pick guard, and it's also bent. I don't know if you can tell in the video, but if you look at it very closely, actually it's this side more. You can see where the tremolo, because this is longer and actually longer than the tremolo block itself, you can see it's bending up like that because this can't handle the pressure. So what had happened was, when I was using this tremolo, it would go back, and it didn't come back exactly the same way. It would go out of tune. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to put tremolo stoppers in here. So I put these two tremolo stoppers, and the reason I used two, I used to use one a while back, but I decided to start using two, because it gives more stable. This is my personal opinion. I know everybody, can have different arguments about it, but it gives more balance to the system. And I always like my springs here, because a lot of videos you'll see they installing these things, they say put the springs here and put the other spring right here on this thing here, and then you keep this one, and then in the middle you put the stopper there. But the problem is, I've always learned, personally, for instance, I was a kid and I've been playing the guitar since the 80s, that they always put your springs straight parallel like that, and it's the best. It's good for the screws, and all that. And also, if they're in a triangle, like for example, you see a lot of guitars here. I had one with triangle like that. Sometimes what would happen, you pulled back, especially if it's floating. I've seen, this will actually, it can pop out. So from all my experience, this is the best way for me. If you do it your way, that's you. That's your guitar, you can do it. But this is for me. But I believe, in my personal opinion, that this is the best way to lay your springs out. So, and the reason I put two stoppers, and I actually used to use one, and then not just for the balance, but what would happen was when I put the first stopper in, especially this type of blocks, my older guitars I had years ago, the block would be a wood. Instead of using this, not just junk plastic, but it would actually be a real piece of wood that would put in between here and block the system so it doesn't go back. So, but it had to be glued. But the problem with that is that you can't, if I want to use a floating, for example, I get in a Pantera mood, I cannot, do it anymore because it's permanently blocked. But what's nice about these stoppers is I put them back a little bit, because a lot of, you see video I put it back a little bit. So when I want to have them floating, let's say on one of my guitars, I decide I'm in this, in the mood to do some squeals, like Dimebag Darrell, and God rest his soul, may he rest in peace. And it's one of the best guitars out there. And there's a lot of other ones too, but it just, I'm just giving an example. Or, George Lynch type of style guitars too. I can actually pull this back, and then I can set it up and go floating again. And it's not a problem. It's nothing permanent. And if I went, then I keep it back blocked. But most of the time, this is how I play anyway. I really don't even pull back anymore. I don't care for it too much. So, and the 80s are over. I know I love 80s music. I mean, don't get me wrong. But the sustain on this is awesome now. I mean, this will give so much sustain. That's the reason why I put the second one. It was the idea of this thing is like, I did an experiment. I couldn't believe already, just for this one, the energy was going here, going into the guitar. And I was like, you know, I'm going to put a second one in there. I'm going to see what happens. And I couldn't believe the sustain. So I've never gotten, it was like just as good as a hard shell, and I couldn't believe it. So, and I know that some people complain about the ping noise that this would make, you know, because when you use the tremolo, it slams right back. What I do is I use Gorilla Tape, or some people use gaff tape. I use black. That's why you can't see it too well. But it's like, if you looked very closely, let me see if I get my flashlight here. If you look very closely, you see that black right there? It's supposed to be, that's Gorilla Tape. So get closer in there. So I do that, and that actually completely takes out the noise of that. So that solves that issue. And just wanted to show you this, because if anybody's like wants to have a Floyd Rose but they don't want to deal with the floating issue, I would completely recommend this. And please, you know, anybody out there, again, don't use no pick guard. Come on, man, you gotta be kidding me. This is like cheap. You look like you cut it out of Squire or something. And you know, I don't know if the guy did it himself, believe it or not, or he took it to check. But anybody out there that's doing it, please don't do it. So this is my video, and hope you enjoy. I hope I didn't bore anybody with some technical stuff, but this is anybody interested in interested in getting a Floyd Rose, and they're like, I don't want to deal with the floating and blah blah blah. Here you go, solves the issue. All right, have a good one.